I married her, and I found out who she used to be. Before I get into this, I need to know, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. This story might hit close to home. I married her on a warm evening in late September, the kind of evening where the sky glows amber long after the sun has dipped below the horizon, and everything feels like it's holding its breath for something beautiful to happen. The venue was set just outside the city, surrounded by tall maple trees that whispered softly in the wind, their leaves catching the golden light like flickers of fire. White chairs lined the aisle in perfect symmetry, each one decorated with delicate ribbons that swayed gently, as if even the air itself approved of what was about to happen. I remember standing at the altar, adjusting my cufflinks for the third time, even though they were already perfect. My hands were steady, but inside me, there was a quiet storm of anticipation. Not fear, not doubt, just that overwhelming awareness that life was about to change forever. Then the music shifted. Every conversation faded into silence as all eyes turned toward the end of the aisle. And there she was. Elena. She stood there like something unreal, framed by the soft glow of the evening light. Her dress flowed around her like liquid silk, hugging her form in a way that felt both elegant and effortless. Her dark hair was pinned loosely, a few strands falling gently along her cheeks, and her eyes, those deep, unreadable eyes, locked onto mine. In that moment, nothing else existed. Not the guests, not the music, not even the world beyond that aisle. Just her. She began to walk toward me, each step measured, graceful, almost hypnotic. And with every step, I felt something tightening in my chest. Not anxiety, not hesitation, but something deeper, something I couldn't quite name at the time. If I had known what I would discover later, I might have recognized it for what it really was. A warning. But back then, I smiled. Because I thought I knew the woman I was marrying. I thought I knew everything. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of vows, soft laughter, and the occasional emotional tear from family members seated in the front rows. Her hand in mine felt warm, steady, reassuring. When she looked at me, she smiled with a softness that made everything feel safe. When we said our vows, her voice didn't tremble. Not once. I choose you, she said, her tone calm, almost certain, in a way that felt unshakable. Not just for who you are now, but for every version of you I'll meet in the future. It sounded perfect, too perfect. At the time, I took it as love. Looking back now, I hear something else. Something calculated, something practiced. But I didn't question it. Not then. When the officiant finally pronounced us husband and wife, the applause rose like a wave crashing over us. People stood, cheering, smiling, celebrating what they believed was the beginning of something beautiful. And maybe, in some twisted way, it was. Because every perfect story needs a flawless beginning, before everything falls apart. The reception carried that same energy of effortless perfection. Soft jazz floated through the air as waiters moved seamlessly between tables, carrying trays of champagne and carefully plated meals. The scent of fresh flowers mixed with warm food, creating an atmosphere that felt almost surreal. Elena moved through the crowd like she belonged in every moment. She laughed at the right times, spoke to everyone with just the right amount of warmth, touched my arm occasionally, as if to remind me, and everyone watching, that we were connected, that we were real, that this wasn't just another carefully staged scene. And I believed it. God, I believed it. At one point, I stepped away to the bar, needing just a moment to breathe, not because anything was wrong, but because everything felt overwhelming in the best way possible. That's when Marcus found me. Marcus had been my best friend for over a decade. He was the kind of person who noticed things others didn't. Quietly observant, rarely judgmental, but when he spoke, really spoke, you listened. He leaned beside me, watching the room. "You look like a man who just won the lottery," he said with a half smile. I laughed lightly. "Feels like it." His gaze shifted toward Elena, who was across the room, speaking with a group of guests. "She's something," he added. There was a pause. A small one, but noticeable. I turned to him. "What's that supposed to mean?" He shrugged, casual, almost dismissive. "Nothing, just saying, she's impressive." I nodded, accepting the answer, even though something about his tone didn't sit right. But I let it go. Because why wouldn't I? It was my wedding day. Nothing was supposed to be wrong. Later that night, after the music had slowed, and most of the guests had either left or drifted into quieter conversations, Elena and I finally had a moment alone. We stepped outside, away from the noise, into the cool night air. The sky was darker now, the stars faint, but visible, scattered like distant secrets across the horizon. She leaned against the railing, looking out into the distance. "You're quiet," I said. She smiled slightly, but didn't look at me immediately. "Just taking it all in," she replied. There was something in her voice. Not sadness, not joy. Something neutral, controlled. I stepped closer. "Any regrets?" She turned to me then, her expression softening just enough to feel real. "None," she said. And for a moment, I believed that too. Until her phone buzzed. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable. But I saw it. She glanced at the screen for less than a second before turning it face down on the railing. Too fast, too deliberate. "Work?" I asked casually. "Something like that," she replied, brushing it off with a faint smile. And just like that, the moment shifted. Not dramatically, Not enough to raise alarms, but enough to plant something small in the back of my mind. A question. One I didn't yet know how to ask, or whether I even wanted the answer. Inside, the music picked up again, laughter spilling through the open doors as someone called our names. Elena reached for my hand, her fingers wrapping around mine with that same familiar warmth. "Come on," she said softly, and I followed her, because at that point, I was still the man who believed he had married the right woman. I just didn't know yet that the woman I married was not the woman she used to be. Top of form. The music swallowed us the moment we stepped back inside, loud enough to blur thought, bright enough to hide anything that didn't belong. Laughter rose and fell in waves, glasses clinked, and somewhere near the center of the room, a group of guests cheered as the dance floor came alive again. Elena didn't hesitate. She slipped back into the rhythm of the night like nothing had shifted, like that brief moment outside had never happened. Her smile returned, perfectly timed, perfectly placed, as if it had been waiting just beneath the surface. I watched her more closely this time. Not obviously, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough. She moved effortlessly between conversations, remembering names, details, small personal things she had only heard once. People were drawn to her, pulled in by something magnetic, something that felt genuine even if you couldn't explain why. It was impressive, but now it was also unsettling. At one point I caught her laughing with a group near the bar, her head tilted slightly, her hand resting lightly on someone's arm as she spoke, her expression warm, engaged. Then, just for a second, her smile dropped. It was quick. So quick that if I had blinked, I would have missed it. Her eyes shifted, scanning the room, sharp and focused, in a way that didn't match the moment. Then it was gone. The smile returned. The warmth. The charm. Like nothing had happened. A flicker. That's all it was. But it stayed with me. I tried to shake it off. Tried to convince myself it was nothing more than my imagination, stretching a moment into something it wasn't. After all, it had been a long day. Emotions were high. Everything felt heightened. Of course I was overthinking. That's what I told myself. That's what I wanted to believe. Later, as the night stretched toward its final hours, the crowd thinned. Conversation softened. The energy shifted from celebration to something quieter, more intimate. That's when Marcus found me again. This time, there was no smile. He stood beside me without speaking at first, his gaze fixed on Elena across the room. "She's different tonight," he said finally. I frowned slightly. "Different how?" He took a moment before answering, as if choosing his words carefully. "Like she's performing." The word landed heavier than it should have. "Everyone's performing," I replied, a little sharper than I intended. "It's a wedding." He shook his head slowly. "No, not like that." I turned to face him fully now. "Then what are you saying?" He hesitated. That alone was enough to irritate me. Marcus didn't hesitate. Not like this. "I'm saying," he started, then stopped, exhaling quietly. "I don't know. Maybe it's nothing." That was worse. "Marcus," I said, my voice lower now, controlled. "Say it." He finally looked at me, and for the first time that night, there was something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Concern. "I feel like I've seen her before," he said. The words didn't make sense at first. "What?" He shook his head again, frustrated now. "I don't know where. I can't place it. But something about her, it's familiar." A small, uneasy laugh escaped me. "That's what this is about? You think you recognize her?" "It's not just that," he said quickly. "It's the way she moves, the way she watches people when she thinks no one's paying attention." I felt something tighten in my chest again. That same feeling from earlier. "That's a stretch," I replied, though my voice lacked conviction. "Maybe," he admitted, "but I've learned to trust that feeling." I didn't respond, because part of me didn't want to, and part of me couldn't. Across the room, Elena turned toward us. Her eyes met mine instantly, and for a moment. She didn't smile. It wasn't anger. It wasn't confusion. It was something colder. Assessing. Like she was trying to figure something out. Then, just as quickly, the expression melted away, replaced by that same familiar warmth as she began walking toward us. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice light, effortless. Marcus straightened slightly, his expression neutral now. "Yeah," he said, "just stealing your husband for a minute." Her gaze lingered on him for a fraction longer than necessary. Then she smiled. "Well, don't keep him too long," she said softly, her hand brushing against mine before she stepped away. I watched her go, and for the first time, I didn't feel completely certain. The drive home was quiet, not uncomfortable, just quiet, the kind of silence that feels full rather than empty. City lights stretched across the windshield in blurred streaks, the road ahead steady and predictable. Elena sat beside me, her head resting lightly against the window, her eyes half closed. "You tired?" I asked. "A little," she replied softly. There was a pause. Then, almost casually, she added, "Marcus seems intense." The comment caught me off guard. "He's just observant," I said. She hummed faintly. "Observant can be dangerous." I glanced at her. "What's that supposed to mean?" She turned her head slightly, meeting my eyes with a small, knowing smile. "Nothing," she said. "Just a thought." Then she looked away again, and just like that, the conversation ended. But the word stayed. Observant can be dangerous. They echoed in my mind long after we got home. The house felt different that night. Not physically. Everything was exactly as we had left it. Clean, quiet, untouched. But something about it felt unfamiliar. Maybe it was the shift from celebration to stillness. Or maybe it was something else. Elena moved through the house with ease, slipping off her heels, setting her things down with quiet precision. She didn't seem tired anymore. If anything, she seemed more awake, more alert. I watched her as she moved toward the bedroom, her posture straight, her movements deliberate. "Coming?" she asked, glancing back at me. "Yeah," I replied, but I didn't move immediately, because something deep in the back of my mind was starting to connect. Small things, tiny details I had ignored before. The way she avoided certain questions about her past, the lack of old photos, the carefully vague stories. At the time, it had felt like privacy. Now, it felt like something else. I finally followed her. The bedroom was dimly lit, soft shadows stretching across the walls. She had already changed, her wedding dress gone, replaced by something simple, comfortable, normal, too normal. She sat on the edge of the bed, watching me. "Long day," she said. "Yeah." Another pause. Then she tilted her head slightly. "You're thinking." It wasn't a question. I forced a small smile, just processing everything. She studied me for a moment longer, then she nodded. "Don't overthink it," she said quietly. "Some things are exactly what they seem." The words should have been reassuring, but they weren't, because something in her tone suggested the opposite. Later that night, after she'd fallen asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing beside me. Everything should have felt right. Perfect even. But it didn't. Because now, there was a question. And once a question like that exists, it doesn't go away. It grows. And the next morning, I would find the first real answer. Not because I went looking for it, but because it found me. Morning came quietly, like it didn't want to disturb anything. A pale gray light filtered through the curtains, soft and almost hesitant, stretching slowly across the room. The air felt still, heavy with the kind of silence that usually follows something meaningful, something final. For a moment, I didn't move. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to hold on to that fragile sense of normalcy. Beside me, Elena slept peacefully. Her face looked different in the morning light, softer, less guarded, or maybe that's what I wanted to see. Her hair spilled loosely across the pillow, one arm resting gently across her side, her breathing steady and calm. There was no tension in her expression, no trace of the sharp awareness I had noticed the night before. She looked innocent, and that word, for some reason, didn't sit right with me anymore. I turned my head slightly, studying her for a few seconds longer, as if I might find something new just by looking hard enough. I didn't, so I slipped out of bed carefully, trying not to wake her. The floor was cool beneath my feet as I made my way toward the kitchen, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the only sound breaking the silence. Everything felt normal. Too normal. I poured myself a glass of water, leaning lightly against the counter as I tried to shake off the lingering unease from the night before. Marcus's words replayed in my mind. I feel like I've seen her before. Observant can be dangerous. And then her expression. That brief moment when her smile disappeared. I exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of my neck. "You're overthinking," I muttered to myself. It sounded convincing, but it didn't feel convincing. I reached for my phone, more out of habit than intention, scrolling absently through notifications I didn't care about. That's when I saw it. A message. From Marcus. Short. Unusual for him. "Call me when you wake up." Something about it immediately tightened my chest. I checked the time. Too early for casual conversation. Too direct for something unimportant. I stared at the message for a few seconds, debating. Then I tapped his name and pressed call. It rang once, twice. He picked up on the third. "You're up," he said. His voice was lower than usual. Serious. "I just saw your message," I replied. "What's going on?" There was a pause. A brief one, but enough. "Where are you?" he asked. "In the kitchen." "Is she with you?" I frowned. "No, she's still asleep." "Why?" Another pause. Longer this time. Then he exhaled. "Okay," he said quietly. "I need you to listen to me carefully." Something in his tone made my grip tighten around the phone. "What is it, Marcus?" "I didn't sleep last night," he said. "I kept thinking about what I told you, about recognizing her." I didn't interrupt. "I knew I'd seen her somewhere," he continued. "I just couldn't place it. But this morning, it came back." My heart started to beat a little faster. "Where?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. And in that silence, something shifted. "I need you to stay calm," he said instead. "Marcus," I said, sharper now. "Just tell me." Another breath. Then finally, "She wasn't always Elena." The words didn't register at first. "What?" "I'm serious," he said. "That's not her original name." A cold sensation crept through my chest. "That doesn't make sense," I replied quickly. "People change their names all the time." "Not like this." The way he said it. It wasn't speculation. It was certainty. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice lower now. "I used to work a case," he said. "A few years back. Not directly, but I was involved enough to remember faces." My stomach tightened. "Marcus?" There was a woman, he continued. Different name, different look, but the same eyes. My grip on the counter tightened. You're reaching, I said, but the words felt weak even as I said them. I thought so too, he admitted, until I found something. The room suddenly felt smaller. What did you find? I still have access to some old files, he said. Archived stuff. I went digging. I closed my eyes briefly. Part of me didn't want to hear the rest, but it was too late. And? I asked. And I found her. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. That's not possible, I said quietly. I'm telling you, it is. My mind raced, trying to reject what I was hearing, trying to piece together some logical explanation that didn't involve everything falling apart. She looks different now, Marcus continued. Hair, style, even the way she carries herself. But it's her. No, I said immediately. You're wrong. I wish I was. My breathing had changed. I could feel it. Shallow. Uneven. What was the case? I asked, my voice barely steady. There was a hesitation. And that hesitation told me everything I didn't want to know. Marcus, I said, firmer now. What case? He exhaled slowly. Then, identity fraud, financial manipulation, disappearances tied to her. The words hit like a sudden drop. What? I whispered. It never fully stuck, he added quickly. There wasn't enough to lock her down permanently. She vanished before things could escalate. My mind struggled to keep up. No, I repeated. No, that's not possible. I thought the same thing, he said, until I compared the images. My heart pounded harder now. She reinvented herself, he continued. New name, new life. I shook my head instinctively, even though he couldn't see me. You're talking about someone else, I said. I'm not. The certainty in his voice was suffocating. I can send you what I found, he said. And for a moment, I didn't answer, because I knew, the second I saw it, everything would change. Send it, I said finally. The line went quiet. A second later, my phone buzzed. A message, from Marcus. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over it. I didn't want to open it, because as long as I didn't, there was still a chance. A small one, but still. Then, a soft sound behind me. I turned. Elena stood at the edge of the hallway, watching me. Silent. Still. Her expression unreadable. How long have you been up? She asked softly. My heart skipped. I locked my phone without opening the message. Just a few minutes, I replied. She stepped closer. Slowly. Her eyes didn't leave mine. Who were you talking to? She asked. Marcus? A pause, then a faint smile. He seems persistent. Something about the way she said it made my skin tighten. Just checking in, I said. She nodded slightly. Then her gaze dropped briefly to my phone, then back to me. Everything okay? She asked. There it was again. That question. Simple on the surface, but layered with something deeper. I forced a small smile. Yeah, I said. She studied me for a second longer, then she smiled back, and just like that, a moment passed. Or at least, that's how it seemed. Because as she turned away, I realized something. She hadn't asked what Marcus said. Not once. And somehow, that felt worse. Much worse. A few minutes later, I found myself alone again. The kitchen felt colder now, quieter. I unlocked my phone. The message was still there, waiting. I hesitated. Then I opened it. An image loaded slowly, grainy, official looking. A file photo. Different hair, different name beneath it, but the same eyes, the same face. Just less refined, less polished, less controlled. And underneath it, a line of text. Alias confirmed. I stared at the screen. The world around me seemed to fade, the edges of reality blurring as one undeniable truth settled in. The woman I married was not who she said she was, and that's when everything changed. But what happened next was worse than anything I expected. The next part is already on the channel. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks.